So there's a hiring surge at TikTok, and in today's video I'll perform a quick analysis over the strengths and weaknesses of their hiring process and how can you actually crack the interview using this type of intelligence. So let's begin with the interesting part, with their weaknesses. So their hiring process is, as a startup, can be quite reactive and quite disorganized. And I've read a couple of reports on that they don't really talk to each other during these interviews. So how can you capitalize on such a process? Well, if they don't talk to each other, it means you can use the same examples with with them multiple times, and especially if they don't take notes. Why is this such an interesting scenario? Well, because if you're running a 3 or 5 hour interview over Zoom, chances are you will not be able to talk about the best possible experience each and every time without repeating yourself. And this is a big issue in interviewing with many other high-performing companies. So it means if you, instead of preparing 20 stories for the interview and preparing to spin them over as much as possible during that time spin, you can only prepare maybe 7 of these stories. And obviously the quality of your answer will be considerably better here because you will always employ the best possible story. So this is how can you, this is a very important one, I believe, that you should take seriously. And of course, I'm not telling you here to only prepare 7 stories. I'm telling you to prepare 20 stories, but you should know those 7 stories that matter the most. And if you feel like during the interview they don't take any notes, there's miscommunication there, and you see they don't prepare for these things because they are on a hiring spree, then yes, this is how you can capitalize on this. Next, they must hire. So if they are advertisers with the hiring surge on Glassdoor, it means their interviewers are pretty busy. And when their interviewers are pretty busy, and especially their first line of interviewers are pretty busy, it means they will not have had time to read your CV in advance. What does it mean for you? Well, it means for you that you're very likely to receive a question, tell me about your background or tell me about yourself, to introduce yourself, to sell yourself during this job interview. So this is exponentially more important to prepare for in the case of a company such as TikTok when compared to a company such as, I don't know, Amazon, who hires, because they have a well-oiled machine to fill in their roles. So the incidence of tell me about yourself is a lot greater at companies such as TikTok simply because they didn't read in advance your CV, so they will learn about you on the spot. Yeah, so this is another thing. The next thing, in my opinion, simply because they are new to this and they are learning so much as they go, attitude is something. Attitude and first impression and positivity will actually something that will sell really well with them. And remember, they're actually a short form video business, and their interviews are run online via video. So in my opinion, your attitude on video is extremely important in these situations. So beware that how you act on video, record yourself, do role plays if you want to have a free role play service, and see how you would act here. Because in my opinion, they are a lot more likely to hire on gut feeling, even if they advertise themselves as hiring on a structured hiring process. So rapport building skills will also sell very well here. Now, also, as I just mentioned, their hiring must be online right now, right? So their hiring process is through Zoom. And a digital hiring process will always be to a candidate's advantage. Like ask any particular, really skilled interviewer, and they will tell you it's very hard to read someone on video. It's a lot harder when compared to when you read them face to face. So what does it mean for you? Well, you can first of all, you will have to invest less time to basically show up on an on-site interview, but there are many other ways that you can capitalize on a video interview. I also done another video here about how can you take advantage of these digital experiences. But basically, you can use cheat sheets, and on video it's a bit different than on face-to-face interviews in the sense that it's a bit more challenging to communicate the idea that you want to transmit. So you must often overemphasize these things. So I'll put a link in the video description if you want to learn more about these things. Next one, they have a pretty basic and replicable core values and mission. And I mean, imagine that I found the spelling mistakes in their core values on their official website. So you can imagine, that they didn't have a lot of time to put these things together well in place. And if you want to look at this by comparison, it took Netflix 2 years of internal testing to arrive to their Netflix culture deck, and then another 10 or 12 years to arrive to the second version of their culture deck, which is so if you ask me. But the idea is these things take years, but since you must have them on day one, they must have them there. This primarily means they don't really put all that much emphasis on this, but you should, in my opinion, read them at least a couple of times, and because they might as well ask you, what's your favorite core value from our company's website, and you can even tell them have a spelling mistake there. Now the other weakness that I want to talk about here is, as they are new with these things, and they have a certain strategy to go about learning quickly the tools of the trade, the tools even of the hiring trade, but the tools of any trade, of any role that they hire for. They will ask you questions that some of you might find as intrusive, like even, I wouldn't go as far as to say illegal questions, but unfair questions as how do you do your job? And especially for HR roles, they will ask you how do you do your job in your existing company, simply to gain intelligence from this. And in my opinion, this is a weakness, not a strength of them. Even if they have learning, they might be great learners and so on. But if they don't know this and they must ask you this, and they genuinely ask you this to find intelligence, you can sell yourself on it as a strength, because when you set the tone in a conversation, when you tell them what they actually want to hear, like for example, in our previous company, we had a structured hiring process with this, and this step, and at every step we would score this with behavioral anchorated scales and whatnot. You will earn their trust, right? So if you prepare to give them enough information for it to be still legal, like not to go into the inner working of the company and into private information, but you will give them the information that they want to hear, you will earn their trust. And if you earn their trust, it means, that basically you're halfway in, or I would say rather 75% in their company already. So this would have been the weaknesses. Now let me quickly go also to their strengths, because also there's some of their strengths they have in this hiring process. The first one is, as a successful business and a startup, you will get smart people to interview you. So what does it mean? It means that your best bet is to make sense at all times. Do your homework a little bit there. Don't have to exaggerate. There are a couple of core values, and the mission is 2 lines of text. So, but this is the thing. The other thing they have as a startup, in a startup that wants to scale fast, referrals will play a very significant role. So if you know someone there that can refer you, in my opinion, it will play a huge difference. It play a lot more difference than if you have a referral, for example, with Amazon or with Google or Facebook. Next strength, even if they're a global company, they do put a lot of emphasis on hiring, and they understand the value of hiring in general, and they do understand the value of behavioral interviewing. I have a ton of other videos on my channel on how to do behavioral interviews the right way. I probably also add a couple of these in the video description. Another strength is their reach. So basically their strategy is, their hiring strategy, and this comes back from China, is to poach candidates from their competitors in China, back from Baidu, which is the Google equivalent there. And here, from these others, FANG, companies. So I believe the interesting part for you as a candidate here is not necessarily they try to poach candidates from other high-performing companies or they offer interesting packages, but rather that they have the luxury here to be picky. And I know from experience when a company can be picky with these things, they will be a lot more biased towards hiring for culture fit rather from technical fit. So at least from an HR perspective, if they have a strong HR department, for example, if they have two candidates, right? The first candidate is extremely gifted, technically skilled, a genius, technically speaking, but not a perfect cultural fit, cultural fit. And the second candidate, they will be, they will be fine, technically speaking, but a great cultural fit, they will always pick the cultural fit. So keep this in mind. If you must show this cultural fit throughout the interview, even when you answer technical questions, in my opinion. And last but not least, they have diversity baked in their core values. Like not many companies have the guts to do this because it has serious implications in their internal processes, or maybe not in their case because they are just at the start of the road. But if you have diversity baked in your core values, it means you must also, they must be pretty serious about these things. And if you look at TikTok, if you consume TikTok, you'll know that pretty rhymes very well with what they do. So this would be the elements that I believe you can capitalize on when it comes to hiring at TikTok. And this is the first of a series of other videos when it comes to giving you more insight when it comes to this rather exciting opportunity, of getting an offer from such a pretty well-performing company.